You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeromy.
I'm Vinz.
I'm James.
And this is your Geek Fix. You know, one of the big things that's been going on is there's been a lot of new Marvel movies that have been coming out. There's been a lot of new superhero movies. There's been a lot of new updates and changes in relation to Doctor Who and other things like that I think good intentions wise and have good potential for. I mean, shows that I'm excited about or was excited about. Things like She-Hulk came out that I'm still in the middle of watching. Had Ms. Marvel, which I finished. We had some other characters that have been introduced, some kid characters that have been introduced recently. You know, the plan to try and start to move into Young Avengers and Teen Brigade and things like that were tied to Marvel, and that all makes sense. And not just Marvel, but also other geeky movies and shows that are out there that I think it would be really easy to say, well, it's because we're complaining about it because there's women in it or something like that. But honestly, I think that the storylines, somewhere between the storylines and then trying to push certain narratives that are kind of making those shows not as good as they could be, and kind of ruining my interest in the experience. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Ruining the experience. Have you watched some of these shows? Like, are you guys all caught up on some of the shows that are out there?
The last one that I saw was the Midnight. I haven't seen She-Hulk or any of the most recent ones.
Okay, that still plays into it too. So in this case, so with Moon Knight, right? You've got Moon Knight, but who else did you have inside of that show? Who's the other main character?
Khonshu. Bird.
Khonshu. Yeah, you had.
Oh well, yeah, true. I guess the bad guy is. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that. Guy. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what's the name of the
misunderstood guy.
I don't know. He's kind of
the whole Egyptian pantheon was there.
Layla, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't
okay.
Layla his
the girlfriend that then
the girlfriends.
Their wife, I should say. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
it's
that's
complicated.
It. Yeah. Okay.
Without going into spoilers.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, so even in that show, the whole point of this is to try and introduce the female characters that are in Marvel, and I mean, you think of any movie that's come out. So Doctor Strange recently came out. It wasn't really about Doctor Strange. It was about America, right?
Yeah.
America, the girl.
Yeah. I didn't.
What's that?
I didn't
America,
enjoy the new.
You didn't like it?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
I thought it was okay, but it could have had more multiverse.
Yeah.
And it was a Sam Raimi movie. I didn't know that going in.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but it also seems a bit like a cop-out saying that, okay, well, because it's a Sam Raimi movie, we can get away with cartoony zombies and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And if you're a fan, you appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if you're going in there like, okay, I'm going into a die-hard comic-like weird multiverse stuff, like even the cartoons handled like Dormammu and all those ethereal beings and all that kind of stuff, I would have thought they would hammer it into that a bit more and maybe even see more of what it means to be a Sorcerer Supreme or a past Sorcerer Supreme, that kind of stuff, and go more into the mystic stuff of the multiverse. But also, I actually thought that, my wife also, we thought that America was Ms. Marvel, and that might just be me getting stuff confused.
No, I thought so too.
Okay, yeah.
She's a different character. So she's part of. I mean, like I said, the whole point of this is how do you take the last phase of Marvel and move into the new one, which is the whole idea is, I don't know if they're going for Young Avengers or Teen Brigade, because America is part of Teen Brigade. from the comics. But the issue that I have with it, and the reason why these aren't working as well as they could, like I actually liked, for example, Ms. Marvel. It's, if you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty well written and enjoyable enough. The issue that I have with it is the same issue I have with all of these shows, and the mistake that they're making with all of these is that they aren't following a typical story formula, which is important. I come from a background, my history. I was in screenwriting. I was a script analyst back in the day and things. There's a certain formula where, regardless of whether or not people like it or not, that you have to use to make stories enjoyable and interesting. And one of those things is that your hero, or the person that your main character, has to be, they have to have a weakness. They have to be weak to a certain extent. That's what makes us not just feel for them, but also have some level of empathy, because we're weak. We're not superheroes, right? If we make it where things come too easily, then what happens is you don't care about the character, because it's like the reason why I don't like Superman anymore.
You know that they're going to be fine.
Yeah. So I used to love Superman, like I said in one of our other episodes. The point where I stopped was because he got to the point where I knew nothing. There was nothing that kept me at the edge of my seat. There was nothing that made me care about the character anymore. Same thing happened for a brief period of time with 007. There was a point in time in, I think, the 90s where 007 is like, the surfing phase of the movies, where it was obvious in the first scene that he was invincible. And so I was bored watching, scenes that should have been intense and exciting. They weren't. And so the issue that I'm seeing with a lot of these movies that are coming out, though, is that one of two things happen in relation to this. One is that they are making the characters right off the bat, they've got everything in place. They've already got their powers, or they're already fine. There's no struggle. There's no area for growth. Tony Stark, did I say Stork? Tony Stark, from movie one till he dies, even, still had room for growth and was still growing. Yeah. He had weaknesses that that were still there, and he was flawed, and he was obviously human. So he might have been a superhero, but he was killable. And so they intentionally, every single, in fact, you think of any movie that Tony was in, or Robert Downey Jr. was in for the Marvel movies, every single one of them, they made sure that they got him where you felt like he was going to die, right? I mean, they made it very obvious. They made sure that you knew that he's mortal, and that and that he's got a heart, kind of thing, right? Yeah. That's necessary. You have to do that, and instead, I think the area where She-Hulk's lost me is, and I thought really that they turned this around. Like, maybe it was just because it was the first episode, and I don't know. But I'm several episodes in now, and basically right off the bat, she had everything. It was all good. She got adjusted to her powers in the first episode. Everything's, I don't care. It's a cartoony show, though, so to a certain extent you can kind of let that go, and you can be like, well, this is more about comedy. This is more about, we had to kind of jump into it. But for the most part, at the same time, I don't feel like I know the character. I don't feel like there's been any kind of character. I don't. Yeah.
With that sort of storyline where you do have a character that starts off like extremely cocky and like full of themselves and stuff, I like it. I like the storyline where they get humbled, so they think that they're better than everything, and then something happens and they get crushed, and then they sort of have to go back up. That is very much like the sort of storyline that you were talking about, where you do start to learn more about the character, because you're growing with them, because they're not as good as they thought they were, or. Yeah. But as you say, with most stories nowadays, it's just, I am as great as I am, and that's it.
Yeah, I do want to give a counterpoint to that, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because most of us know all the 80s faff that had been in the Saturday morning cartoons. But if you look at He-Man or G.I. Joe, for example, He-Man started out with his power. G.I. Joe always wins, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think also at a certain point, looking at the target audience for these series, I once saw this, I think the Toys That Made Us, for example, mentioned that
Right.
they did a marketing research about the fact that kids at a certain age really jive well with the word power.
Well, they wanted power, yeah.
Yeah. So they wanted power.
Yeah.
And I also think that maybe it plays more to the fact that it's more wishful thinking. Like, I wish I could, be perfect in such a way that I could have an innate ability and one day the world could be different. And, I don't have the struggle that I'm living right now. But the light switch goes on, and I have the powers. So I think that could also be the way that they're trying to go.
On the flip side, they did make a live version of He-Man.
yeah, I know.
And but I mean, on the flip side, I mean, some episodic shows you can get away with it because either A, it's something that's already been established enough.
Yeah.
Where, like you go in to watch the Spider-Man series, it might not go through and to take you through the whole,
Yeah, like Spider-Man and Super Friends, for example, they just have their powers. They are Spider. But that's the thing is, when does it become an archetype and when does it become an arc for a person to go through?
So the big thing is, I mean, it depends on what the type of story is that you're delivering. So if your point is, again, you're talking about the difference between those 20-minute, the 20-minute shows versus these hour, even these Marvel ones are a bit longer, but where you're needing to get invested, the issue is, and I also think because we do have some preconceptions of what we're wanting before we get into it, but what you were mentioning, James, there has to be 3 acts. That's the formula that always works. If you start off with the first one, we get introduced to the character. Maybe they are, cocky or whatever, or maybe they're whatever the issue is, or they have something. The second act, the way that you make the story work and you make people want to watch is you take away whatever the comfortable thing is, make them uncomfortable, and then the third act is how they recover from it, right? Yeah. And and sometimes these trilogies work that way too. So you think of like the episode 4 versus episode 5 versus episode 6. That's that first, second, and third acts. But at the same time, they also had that built into each of the stories throughout as well. So the issue here is a good example would be Captain Marvel. I was excited to see Captain Marvel when it first came out. I didn't know enough about it, and I went on the commercials thinking that it was going to be like what I had read when I did the comics. Which, if you read the comics series on that, I mean, there was a lot of introduction. There was a lot of things that happened. I mean, there's a different there was Marvel before Captain Marvel, all that stuff, right? There's a storyline and this whole thing about growth and loss. Loss was a big part of it. But then when I went and saw the show, like first scene, she's already who she is. And I don't know. And I felt like there was never a point where I really got to know her character played by this, the way that this actress would do it. I never felt worried about her because Captain Marvel's kind of like the strongest hero it is. In fact, part of the reason why they had to have her go into space and leave is because having her around ruins everything, because it's kind of like Superman in the DC comics. Superman shows up and it's like, well, what are you going to do?
There was a show where they actually mentioned that about Captain Marvel, I think, while she was off doing other stuff. I don't know which one it was, but they did hint to it.
It plays into, I mean, because in the comics, I mean, she wasn't on Earth. She was out, she was fighting it was an alien based series. Yeah. But on the flip side, I think that was their out for how to explain that she just doesn't come in and take care of all this right off the bat. And
I think that was in one of the Avengers as well, where they're doing the holograms. I think it might be the Avengers Endgame. where
Yep.
they're all doing the holograms.
She just
and
shows
said
up briefly
specifically
in it.
that she's off planet, that she can't deal with human things because she has to do other things. But I do agree that like you have this Deus Ex Machina that it specifically in the first film comes in, saves the day because she doesn't actually save the day, and then flies off, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's what you see.
Yeah. I think that the other issue is, with some of these, because they're using the characters, they're trying to introduce new characters through characters that we're already aware of, and really the main reason why we went. I didn't go to Doctor Strange to see America.
No.
But the story was really supposed to be about America. And at the same time, because they were focused, because what they were trying to sell me was that the main character was supposed to be Doctor Strange, they tried to show his growth. America had none. Like, none. There was nothing that changed for America.
She had everything all along. Yeah, that was the thing.
It was... And I never got to know America either, because that wasn't the point.
And the next film, they won't introduce her as a character because you will already have seen her, so you feel something towards her, although it's not.
But it might be something that they do, in the expanded universe. Same thing with Star Wars, like basically everything and their mother as a comic or a novel adaptation in the Star Wars universe.
If you were to compare it to DC, what they're setting up is Teen Titans. This is the Teen Titans that they're bringing together. But like when you saw Teen Titans, you had known Robin for years. You knew his backstory, and you were slowly, in fact, to the point that you were tired of Brian. This is part of the reason why Teen Titans happened. People like Robin, we were kind of like, he's kind of the whiny guy. We're kind of tired of seeing him around. Let's take him out of Batman. And they put him over. Oh, I love Teen Titans Go.
With the tiny baby hands that Robin has.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. But you know what I mean? Like they pulled them out. The reason why they did that on the DC side was because people were ready to just see the Batman story from there on. They wanted it more gritty. And they wanted the Boy Wonder, out of that. And same thing with, and so, and then they brought in, the teen version of Superman. And then they rebel because, the older heroes are kind of like the adults of the world that have messed up everything for them and stuff. And so, that was the way DC did it. That was the way to do it. The way that Marvel's trying to do this, like what you said, is when we see them next, it's going to be all these characters are going to be the same thing. We've barely seen them, and then they're going to be just going out and fighting a story. The other movie that annoyed me that came out, the Marvel movie, which some people probably don't even know it was a Marvel movie in the end. No, but that actually wasn't too bad. I was all right with that one. No, the fact that you didn't bring it up tells me that you guys might not be thinking of it either. Nope, Eternals.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I haven't watched that yet.
No.
You didn't miss anything.
I just saved you 2.5 hours.
Yeah. I heard so many people say that it was bad that I just haven't got around to watching it yet.
What's so sad is I as far as individual the all the people that are in it, are great. I mean, I love the stuff they do. And from comedy to anything else. But in that show, again, we didn't get introduced to them or anything like that. They came in, it starts off right off the bat, they all have their powers, then they're fighting, it's different things, and it kind of was all over the place. And then I never saw any character development, and at the very end of the movie, you basically find out that there was no reason for anything to even happen. So it was like, what was the point of that?
And
it was not a show.
Really bad character insert at the end, also with the dark sword.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. But just a pet peeve of mine, because my brother is deaf and I know sign language. And there's the new show Echo coming up with the girl from Hawkeye. But also one of the people in Eternals is also at least using sign language to speak. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to offend any people that speak ASL, like American Sign Language, but man, those slapping hands when they talk, it's just like,
oh yeah, Yeah.
And I'm like,
I gotcha.
I don't talk like that to my family. Like when I'm
Right.
gesturing and
They overdo it for the point of the acting of it.
yeah, and the grunting is like
Yeah.
I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
you have some words to tell, but
Yeah.
that kind of annoys me because most, I grew up with a way of thinking that you speak and you gesture at the same time. So
Right.
people can read lips while you're gesturing just to get the
Right.
context right. There are some people that think you should only do the sign language. There are some people that say that they should just talk instead of doing all that other stuff. So for me with Disney it was like, and my brother also. I mean, he watches the movies. Well, he's a geek like me, and he's also like, "What?" I understand that they want to drive the point home that they are signing and that there's something with it. Yeah. But the way it's done so aggressively.
It's the same as any time in a movie. I mean, we're in the modern age. Anytime that they need to do something on the computer and they sit down and it's supposed to be an action moment.
Yeah.
There's no mouse use. It's all keyboard use, right? It's like, right? It's stuff like that.
The equivalent of that for sign language.
It's because it would be too boring to go click.
Yeah.
It's like hacker scenes in movie where they open up tons and tons of terminals and scrolling all around and
like, no, I just ran this and yeah. I don't know. I mean, back to I feel like it's sad because I really like Marvel.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people say, I mean, people that are non-Marvel people just have hated every single one of these shows and every one of the movies. Whereas, all the Marvel people like me are like, well, you really need to see it in order to be able to know when we go on to the next thing. Yeah. I mean, it's like anything else. You gotta be there to know, because they're introducing something in each one of these shows, and it's going to add up to something. And so, I don't know. I mean, every single one of them too. Again, like you said, I can't think of a single Marvel show. I can think of actually one technically, but a Marvel show that's come out recently where it hasn't been a distractor. Loki, I've been watching that series. I love that. I'm looking forward to the next one, but it's not about Loki. It's really about her.
Well, and
again, they haven't really. The whole purpose of that series is also to introduce her, because again, she's going to be the one that's going to be carrying on into the next phase, and somewhere along the line they've got to come up with the teen Loki, because there is a teen Loki that's key to this new phase as well. So he's the tempter. He's the one that gets so America. He almost turns her evil in the comics, but. But I mean, so I know all this stuff is coming up. Anyone that's read these things, we get it. We know what they're doing. I just, I feel like
it was more entertaining or fulfilling,
or slower.
Yeah.
The Miss Marvel, like you said, it was good enough, and I enjoyed watching it nonetheless. But I feel like what they were trying to do is to fit everything into this first season, which didn't have enough episodes to do it. And by doing that, they rushed it.
Yeah, but I also think it was it looked like a COVID series to me, because it was very claustrophobic. Like the camera was in everybody's face. And there was no wide shots anywhere to be seen in that series, as far as a couple of episodes I saw, because I stopped watching it after. Yeah.
I mean, this can always happen in some movies, but I mean, like, it's hard to keep track of your timeline sometimes, because you can write something that when you really think about the time that they're saying it takes, it wouldn't fit. So they go to they actually go to Pakistan.
Okay.
And come back before the wedding, and the wedding is like in 1 week.
The jet
and all this stuff happens while they're over there. I mean, so even the storyline wise, it didn't make sense. It felt like if they could have stretched it out, if they would have done what the first 4 episodes were, if they would have stretched those out to be the full first season, then it would have been perfect for me.
Yeah, well,
and then the next season would be a nice carry on. By the end of the first or second or third episode, they already had them like having all their stuff. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, there's that piece. The other side of the coin is, again, making 2 people too powerful right off the bat. or forgetting things. Are you Doctor Who fans at all?
Yeah, up to a certain
was
level.
up till Matt Smith.
Yeah,
Were you?
Capaldi.
Until Matt Smith. Interesting.
No, like Matt Smith included.
Okay.
Oh, Matt Smith included.
I can actually
Okay.
do a meet and greet, or at least next week. He's in Belgium.
Oh, really? Oh, that's kind of
Want
cool.
me to score an autograph? It's gonna cost you $100.
Oh, really?
Yes.
He was in another.
I would love to, but
He was also he was the bad guy in speaking of bad
Morbius.
superhero movies. Yeah. Oh
I haven't
man.
watched that either.
I only
Yeah,
saw the
save your money on that one. And yet they're making a sequel. I don't know why. How did they think that was a good idea?
because
I don't
everybody's
know.
gonna see it who has seen the first one and hopes it's gonna be a disaster, just like that one. I guess.
That was such a horrible movie. I was so sad about that because he's a good. I really like him in most other things he plays.
Unliving
but, you know,
vampire.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't
Yeah,
say undead. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It seemed like a fan made thing when I saw it.
Okay.
Like I really, the whole time I kept on going. There was a budget behind this. Like it felt like it was a fan movie. But anyway, no. But yeah, Doctor Who. I've been a huge fan from day one, and then it again. It's not. It doesn't. It's not about the character. About them becoming female. I think the thing I'd say about Doctor Who is actually I feel like they've always done their women wrong. Like when you think about it, like think of most all the characters, Sarah Jane included. Actually, they would take a premise or an idea that was working, and then rather than going the direction that would really make it interesting or make it work, they either get rid of them,
Yeah.
or they do something just stupid. It's like Dr. Donna and things like that they pulled at one point in time. The example that I'd use is, or the thing that I'd say about this is Doctor Who. Who would you say is technically the main character of Doctor Who?
The TARDIS.
Yeah,
The TARDIS. You're going with the TARDIS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Unless you would say the Master, but I don't know if the Master's in any of the newer stuff.
Nope, but I got something to say about the Master pretty soon. No. It's always the companion.
K9.
Yeah, I wish it was K9. I got a K9 over here that works.
I have one at home, sadly.
Do
I
you?
don't have it here. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
One of
K9.
the RC control things along with the Dalek.
Oh, really? Oh, I like that. I like that. No,
I'll show you whenever possible.
It looks so dumb, but it's charming in that way.
Yeah. Oh, well, considering the era, that was. Yeah, I loved.
Well, it beats putting a monkey in a dog suit like Battlestar Galactica.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a good. No, the whole Doctor Who is patterned after a certain story model, and that story model is Peter Pan. And Peter Pan, even though it's named after Peter Pan, is not the main character. It's Wendy. It's always the companion, because the whole point is, and you're supposed to be the companion. The whole point is that we're in this life that we find boring, or that there's all these things that we don't want to be adults. We don't like paying taxes. We don't like stuff like that. So they meet this fantastic character who cares less about money, doesn't understand it, doesn't have to worry about death, never has to deal with loss, things like that. And the whole point of the storyline is supposed to be, again, that arc is that they go on these trips and things, but eventually they come around to the idea that it's time for me to grow up and to go back to a real life. That's the way it's supposed to work. And it's supposed to be their development. That's really what we're supposed to be watching. And so, and the truth is, they've done research on this, as far as the viewership. The viewership's always been best when there is an actual companion. At the times where he's gone solo, it's always gone down. And that's part of the reason why, is because that's the character that's going to be representing us, and that we're technically supposed to be watching, even though we're not dressing up like them. We're not, running around pretending we're them. They don't have a sonic screwdriver.
Are there really many episodes without a companion? Like, I know that the Christmas special.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the ones like with David Tennant and Matt Smith specifically, but isn't it mostly the Christmas episodes where he didn't have a companion?
Well, David Tennant particularly, you remember they had long periods of time that they tried to basically what they were actually doing was they were trying to fill out who could become a companion. So they would watch the viewership, because that was still when they were able to do some of the shows. They were basically filming them 1 week, and 3 weeks later they were, going on the TV. So this was before they'd film them all and then release them. And they were looking to see who people reacted to most. So they had like the Titanic one, and they watched to see, how did people like her, and then they have another one. And so there was that period of time, but during that time, viewership went down. And so, that's the thing though to it is so then when they brought on the new Doctor, there was just too much at one time that they did that I think that made it hard for, people that are passionate about Doctor Who. Is they went through and they said, well, we're going to get rid of all the old aliens that people, all the things that you associate with it. In one series, all at once, we're going to say, nope, we're getting rid of all that. We're not going back to any of that stuff.
It's the Cybermen again.
Yeah.
I know that in my case, it was very difficult going from David Tennant to Matt Smith, just because, exactly what you say, because they didn't maintain any of the old companions. The TARDIS was completely redone. Sonic Screwdriver was redone. Most aliens didn't come up again until a lot later down. So the first season with Matt Smith, I'm not saying he was a bad Doctor or anything. He was very good. It was just such an extreme change that people that had watched Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant up to that point was just a drop off.
But here's a counterpoint to, so if you were to go back and rewatch it, go back to the first episode with Matt Smith. Because if we were so I think what they try to do is they try to do a reset. I think they also try to make us not care that David Tennant was leaving by trying to make him kind of a jerk at the end. Who cares? I'm all about myself and all that stuff. But at the same time, so and kind of the wimpy, I don't want to. But anyway, at the same time, that first episode is Peter Pan, 100%. Right? He goes in the little girl's room and stuff because, gives her promises. She's all excited. She's waiting for him and things. And it's all that is 100% going back to the formula that was meant to work. And then, and to a certain extent, we also got to see that character a little bit better. And in the end, she's actually one of the most liked, characters as far as the companions go. Part of what helped her launch into a bunch of other shows in the Marvel universe as well. But at the same time, those were the things that worked. But then also, there's supposed to be frivolousness about these episodes. Yeah, they get into some heavy things like Lost and stuff, but don't go with politics. Don't go with whatever. And instead, the first 3 episodes with the newest Doctor, we're just about to get a new Doctor, but at the same time, the first 3 episodes with the newest Doctor, right off the bat, where they stayed on Earth, and they're dealing with Martin Luther King, rape culture stuff, things like that. Like boom, boom. It was just too heavy. It was like too much.
Or like Dr.
Right off the bat. It's like, so, and then there was, so all the stuff that you were used to seeing with Doctor Who wasn't there.
Right.
It wasn't about, that main change. And then they did make her, at least, I did feel, because I was watching for it, like they gave enough of there's some vulnerability initially, but it still wasn't enough for me.
Yeah, I never watched her because
kind of thing.
I dropped off with Capaldi when they were with the Missy and the Master and that whole Matrix thing, and it was again the Cyberman for the umpteenth time. And my wife and I watched from the
It's too much.
Yeah, and then we dropped off, and then I saw later because I tend to keep track of it. I saw the guy from Little Britain join, like Noel Dor or whatever his name is, and I was like, okay, but there was a show with David Tennant and I forgot her name. Jodie is her name, right? The actress, Jodie of the Doctor, the new Doctor,
current one.
Yeah.
Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah. They did a show together called Broadchurch, which was that.
Oh yeah.
David Tennant was a detective, and she was
the
wife of a victim or something like that. Yeah. And she played it very bland. And when I look at press photos of Doctor Who, when she's playing the Doctor, she's always staring this way with her mouth half open, and it doesn't exude any enthusiasm or any, you know, frivolry or whatever. So I never felt that I should watch it again. It's not that she's female or whatever, but the way she's positioned also in PR stuff, it looks very bland. And I
think she acts like David Tennant. It's like she's trying to act like David Tennant.
The stoic
literally,
kind of...
Like when you watch it, I feel like she's literally acting like someone acting like David Tennant.
Okay.
Like she's...
Yeah, and it could be the script that she's given, because there was also something with the showrunner, of course. But if you look at her as a person, I mean, from what I saw outside of Doctor Who, and she can play... that's maybe not the best compliment, but she can play a bland person pretty well. But I think if you let her loose and she could do her own stuff, I think she would be a great actress and also a great doctor. But it is, of course, the stigma that comes with it, saying that, okay, well, it's the first female doctor, so you get, of course, a bit of a spotlight thrown on you. But again, Matt Smith got the same spotlight, basically, because he was a totally different doctor than Tennant.
Yeah. All the doctors have gotten over it. You know,
and I think looking back, I mean, I wasn't there for the old doctors. I mean, when you start off with an old man at a garbage pit,
right?
You know, taking his granddaughter, who isn't his granddaughter, into a phone booth.
That's back when it was a fireplace. Oh yeah, Curtis was a fireplace.
Yeah. Then I think
used to change shapes. It wasn't always the
It wasn't. It stopped doing that after a
it broke.
Yeah,
so it wouldn't change. Yeah.
But then I think we came pretty far. But I think, you know, in a way, it's good that there. I mean, so many women I know would like or do cosplay as the Doctor, and they just wear the costumes and all that with the scarf and you know. So I think it's great to have an actual, you know, female Doctor going forward.
I think what would have been better though is the last Master. Near the end of Capaldi's time, what I had pictured, because there was a point where actually I went from being like, this character, to actually she was unpredictable enough. I think what they could have done is made the Doctor disappear for a while, and had her be the one that the companions are running around with, and they never know what the crap she's going to do. Like, is she going to be the good guy now, or is she going to be the bad guy? That could have been... I would have watched that for a while, but they didn't do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's a thing that I hope that this is just a phase that all these shows and things are going through, because they're trying to introduce and push and promote some things, and they don't have the length of time or the resources maybe to have something that's slower and more fulfilling. Maybe it'll pass, and then they're going to start building real arcs again and real characters. But for right now, I don't know.
Okay.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want more, stay tuned for that. But also check out our channel, join the community on YouTube that goes by the same name, Your Geek Fix. Be sure to check out Vinz on Twitter at MassiveDMG_ and on his YouTube channel, MassiveDMG. Check out James at Mr. Malto4 on Instagram and the Replica Prop Forum. We also want to hear from you, so be sure to send your questions, stories, and other projects to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been Your Geek Fix.